see dreams lighting up the night. Adam says,
Buy side plus sell side. It's contagious. Here's Adam and Gareth to entertain us.
Thank you, David Maldo. Hello, ad tech world. Welcome to the August 15th, 2025 episode of Ad Tech Ad Talk, where we have so much to talk about. There's so much shit going on at ad tech right now. I could not be more excited to be on the show today with Gareth Glazer and our special guest, TBD. Gareth, how you feeling?
I'm feeling all right. I got one good ear, one recovering ear, and I got a lot of really angry readers, which makes me really happy.
Oh yeah, you dropped the bomb on people. There's been bombs dropping in ad tech, but before we get to the action, or as a prelude, I'm going to finish my review of Yield by Ari Paro. I finished the book last Saturday. Incredibly, I was taking care of my daughter. She spent the whole day with a friend, so I've read hundreds of pages and got through it. And like I said last week, Ari did a great job explaining the technical material of what happened in ad tech, a great job setting up the history of ad tech and into the conducts of that became the meat of the ad tech case. But he really blows it when he gets to the trial. And I'm sorry to say that the book did not carry any of the drama that it should have been, which is essentially a crime and punishment story, right? And it should peak when you get to the punishment phase. And I think he had potentially great material in the experience of everyone who worked in ad tech, all of a sudden being called to DOJ and meeting with people like the chief economist of DOJ and doing depositions all year. I've had some of that experience, and I'm sure if he'd asked any of the people who went through it, he would have gotten some really intense quotes of what it's like to be plucked out of your day to day and all of a sudden see your industry through a completely different lens, right? We see our industry through an ad tech lens. We're in the ad tech trenches. And what it's like when suddenly you're in front of the Department of Justice or the Senate or even economists is that our market seen through different lenses is totally different. It's like getting a bird's eye view of the battle you've been in, right? So he did not bring a legal lens or an economic lens to the story. He didn't engage in which of the things Google did are illegal and why they're illegal and what the Sherman Act is, and didn't even really cover like how they ended up breaking the Sherman Act or how that was decided. But the truly interesting lens is economics. Like for my experience working in the investigations, to work with economists and to understand the differences between a functioning market and a non-functioning market and a broker, right? When Google acts as a broker when they do click arbitrage for impressions, meaning they take possession of the money they're spending and then they could do whatever they want with it, which is totally different than acting as an agent when you're hired by someone to buy or sell for them. And in the economic lens, right? The first thing I learned about ad tech from the economic lens is the market's dysfunctional. When I met Susan Athey, and for one of the first things I heard her say to a DOJ lawyer is, this is a market where 20% of what you buy is garbage. So this is a dysfunctional market. And everyone shook their head. And I was like, oh, markets aren't supposed to be like that. Like, this is why we're here. Like, this is like what we live with every day is actually a huge problem and suggesting of illegal conduct. So with
Oh my
Google losing
goodness.
this case, what Ari did not explain and what is actually happening now would have been really useful to talk about is that this fact that we live with a market where there's a huge percentage of garbage hidden in what people buy is potentially going to be fixed, right? And we could start to see this in the market with the floor. You could think of like the lowest level of quality is getting pushed up, right? And there's all this complaining now, right? And when you, Gareth, write on your blog something about transaction ID, which is a totally good faith effort to to make the market better, there's all this resistance and complaining. And in the context of the Google trial, it's like you're just bitching, like you've been able to hide in this market that was dominated by Google and was totally dysfunctional. And now we're going to have market function. People are going to have a choice. They're going to have visibility into what they're buying. And if you're crying about that, you should just get with it. You should understand the material in this book up to the trial, and then you should read about the trial by someone who's explaining it a little better than Ari did. Ari goes so far as to like describe what, in his view, which of the conducts were unfair. In his opinion, it's like the worst product guy thing you could do, right? Substitute your personal opinion as something unbiased and factual, right? The real material is what's illegal, why it's illegal, what caused market dysfunction, and why that harmed competition. And then get involved in the remedies is how market competition is restored and what happens when it is restored. So that's something that's happening now, Gareth. I know you wrote about it, and I want to introduce our very special guest who's involved in these fights around quality. Ladies and gentlemen, the founder of Sincera, Trade Desk employee, Mike O'Sullivan.
Hey everyone,
Hey, Mike.
happy to be here.
How you
Yeah.
doing,
I
buddy?
also have the stream running, so I'm like watching this. I'm like watching myself on tape delay. I feel like a
Yeah.
real broadcaster now.
Yeah. Make sure you turn the sound off. So, Mike, do you have a
Weird.
job at Trade Desk now, I guess? You got acquired?
Yeah, I've listen. They work us hard. It's great. What I would say is like it is very interesting. Like the whole hypothesis for the deal was like we have all this interesting data and ways to detect it, and Trade Desk has scale. So if you want to accelerate and have the largest impact quickly, it makes sense to have these two pieces together. And by and large, that I think that has been the case. We've made a lot of strides, and like I said in my blog post yesterday, I think we'll continue to. But yeah, there's feels like every day it's trying to put 10 pounds of groceries into a 5 pound bag.
Well, let's back up and introduce Mike for the noobs. Mike's a product guy at Microsoft and AppNexus, Criteo, Index Exchange before founding Sincera. Something Mike told me once is that all those jobs, someone asked them to build a crawler so they could understand everything that's happening in ad tech all around the internet. So one of the ideas of Sincera is let's build the ultimate crawler and let's make the data available for people to build on top of it. My company Chalice was a customer that built on top of Sincera data, and there are many others. So Trade Desk buying this company is now Trade Desk bringing in-house this unparalleled knowledge of what's really going on pages, right? On individual pages, especially in display, and I'm sure extending into CTV and other growth areas. And so Gareth, you and Michael must have worked together at AppNexus.
We did, man. We overlapped
Yeah.
in like 2012 at
Yeah.
AppNexus.
Yeah.
Yeah, those,
You were wearing a lot less chains at the time. That was the biggest difference. And I was wearing larger sneakers and you were wearing smaller chains. And
I
that's
remember
the
the
major
sneakers.
difference. Yeah.
I also had a lot more hair. That was also a thing that I
Honestly,
harked on.
I don't remember the hair.
We
So
don't shy
I
away
think
from tough
I think
topics.
the new look suits you well.
I love it, guys. Thank you. That makes me feel great.
The bad boy of the open internet. It's biker-esque. Zuckerberg slash biker.
So,
That's-
Michael, I think the first thing people want to know is how much money have you lost as Trade Desk stock has declined, and how do you feel about it?
Well, you only lose money when you I didn't gain money and I didn't lose money through all of this. And we have a vesting period, so I honestly I don't really think about it on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis. Because like earnings are quarterly 90-day checkpoints. I don't always understand the decisioning and the thought process behind them, but all you can do is ship. The way I prefer to sort of think about it is I didn't necessarily sell the company to Trade Desk, but I bet the company on Trade Desk, and it's going to take a lot of work for me and the team to make sure that that bet comes to fruition.
That's good. You got to be tough. I don't know if I'm that tough, right? I'm certainly betting on my company, but to be able to handle it, the value going down and have to fight it back up in public seems daunting to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not me doing the majority of the fighting. That's Jeff's job. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so you're a sell side guy and you're now on the buy side. So let's start our conversation there. What is it? How does it look switching sides? Have you been buying any campaigns, and how has it changed your perspective,
Yeah,
your knowledge to buy?
I it I have been running campaigns. So if you see an ad for Open Sincera, that's coming out of my campaigns that I'm using and running, and learning more about the buy side of how Trade Desk works, and just as a user, and screenshotting things, being like, why does it do this way? And what happens this way? And super getting deep and deeper every day into Kokai and learning about the functionality. So I think in general, like, back in the day when I was working with Gareth, like I was doing more buy side stuff then with Zaxxas. So I've sort of ping ponged back and forth, but definitely more sell side. One of the things that is like very interesting to me, and I'm going to go back to your Ari point about like, hey, it's a product guy, like sharing your opinion versus like the reality, is that people love to sort of say DSPs, SSPs, isn't that the same thing, whatever. And like they play this like four-dimensional strategy chess. But there is a very material difference in that like users log into a DSP, like the workflow and the UX matter. And there's buyers almost certainly like use multiple DSPs, but there is a switching cost limit to that, right? Like there's how many can they actually do because they're actually using these tools versus an SSP, like you can have 30. And if you were building an SSP today, would you ever build a front end for users? Like I honestly don't know. So that's kind of like less about strategy and economics and supply chains, and more just like a very meat and potatoes difference between the two that is very striking in terms of how you staff and resource.
The SSP thing is weird that they take money off the bid. I think as a buyer, until I understood the sell side, I'm not sure I knew that there were money coming off my bid, that wasn't in any report, that money wasn't getting to the publisher and I didn't know about it. And I think, it was a landmark that you posted that on LinkedIn. You just showed some data that I assume you got from Sincera, right? Scraping a site where
Mhm.
a fee was communicated over HTML or something like that. But anyway, if you missed it, Gareth showed a SSP taking 65% off of a high $29 bid.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very wild time for the supply chain side of things, and I think as a buyer, yeah, you don't really realize what's sort of happening upstream. And I think a really interesting. I was talking to someone else today. Interesting idea is like if you were building a buy side company today, would you build it with integrations into an SSP?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are doing containerized RTV with Index. So that's how we see it. Is like there's cloud infrastructures where the action's going to be
Hmm.
uh, not applications.
Right,
Um,
right. Yeah, go ahead.
I had this debate just yesterday with a big sell side company, because it's very popular on the sell side to advocate for the existence of SSPs as something inherent to how the market works. And I'm like, I beat a dead horse on this one. Prebid is an SSP, right? If we're gonna like get down to brass tacks, Prebid performs every function that an exchange could. So the question is, what's the feasibility for someone building a bidder to go out and do Prebid integrations with every publisher out there? And that's really the question you have to ask yourself. If you were to answer Mike's question, if I'm building a bidder, right? And when I say buy side company, I distinguish very like clearly that to me that's a bidder. Because Adam, you can build a buy side company on top of Index now, which is super interesting and cool. But if I were looking at a time machine, right? If you were building a DSP, if you were building a bidder 10 years ago, you had to work with SSPs. That was the answer. And you had
Yeah.
a
Also,
list of
we're not a
SSPs that
billing
you integrated
entity.
with.
We didn't build a billing entity, so there's still that's a big piece still missing. That's
Yeah, that
Yeah.
important
was the only
market
piece on your
function.
pre-bid point, Garrett, that I would say that's missing is like the clearing and
Ah,
that kind of
I
thing.
know, but that's so easily outsourced, guys. Oh, I got into it with someone on this the other day. It's so easily outsourced. I can name four companies right now who will talk to all of your publishers for you and handle every dollar and will just give you a bulk amount at the end of the month that you need to pay. And not only will they handle publisher payments, they'll accelerate them for you. So there are a few financial entities, right? Orex, FastPay, people like this, whose job it is to sit between exchanges and publishers right now because exchanges have been pumping up their payment terms, right? They started at 30, then they were like, oh, we can get it at 60, oh, we can get it at 90. And publishers have been going like, hey, I need this money sooner. So a whole breed of company came into being that was, oh, we're a factoring company. We're going to factor your exchange bills. So there are
Mm.
companies that extend lines of credit today for every single ad exchange, every single
Ethereum
one.
ads. Ethereum ads.
Yeah. Oh, it's yeah, that's right. There's an Imperium one too. And these guys can operate throughout the entire supply chain, by the way. They do agency to DSP, DSP to exchange. Like there's all the
That's cool.
finance people are drooling at this because they're like, wait, will
Powerful
you people,
visual.
yeah, people want to like accelerate these. This is amazing. I can charge 1.5% for every 30-day period and end up charging 5% of the total here. Huge for them. But yeah, so there are a
I
few
have a
companies.
question.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, let's get to let's do Ad Tech Girl's question first.
That's a girl
So you want to
question.
read it?
Yeah. Was the SSP margin, this is a question from that ad tech girl, was the SSP margin just for the SSP or could it have included curators, etc. in Mike's screenshot?
Hmm. Yeah, we get some version of this question, or I've gotten some version of this question. And the reality is, like, in this particular one, there was no curator. But like, I chose to show one transaction. We have millions. We have them with deals, without deals, with curators, without curators. Like, they're just it's not hard to find these types of transactions and these behaviors because the larger point is like there's this attempt to perhaps like, well, let me explain this one transaction, but it's like, well, if there's a curator but it's on the back end and there could be a unique format which is doing this and blah blah blah, and it's like all of those things could explain one transaction, but there's millions and millions daily, and so it's like I just think about the Occam's razor, like what's the most straightforward explanation of this?
Yeah,
I mean,
And
crimes.
another thing I would say, just by the way, for ad tech role, and I would love Garrett's and Adam's comments, is like I think if you zoom out from this transaction and you look at like the last 6 or 8 years, the amount of entities that sit closer to the publisher or like an SSP or as an intermediary, as represented by like a pre-bid bid adapter, has exploded, right? Like AdaptMX 6 years ago was on under 500 site properties. Now they're on 80,000,
Yeah,
right? How many buyers know who AdaptMX is,
yeah.
right? That space is exploding. And then what's happened with DSPs in the last 6 to 8 years, right? It's contracted dramatically.
Contracted.
declined.
Like
Yeah, there are 10 DSPs and 300 bit adapters. It doesn't make any
there's
Holding
sense.
10,
company
but there's
partners
It's
but
too.
the,
totally
but
silly.
there's three DSPs that drive 85% of
Yeah.
the spend. So it's like it's funny. It's just an interesting observation where it's like there's this contortion occasionally happening. I'm not saying that's what ad tech role is. There are other questions where like there's this contortion to try to explain it. But if you just look at the larger market, it's like where is there growth happening? Like
Yeah.
explosive growth happening, and where is shrinking happening? And I
Yeah,
think
Yeah.
from
that
the
is
from,
very
from the buy
Oh,
instructive.
side.
I got thoughts on this one. Go ahead, Adam.
As an agency trading desk leader, like a lot of what we were trying to do was to clean up the agency's billing, right? There's money going out to almost anyone who walked in the door and pitched a team. They could get a budget. And that was good that the agency was so open. But eventually the agency was like, look, there's programmatic and we have a trading desk, and you shouldn't really be making all these deals with all these markups. So like they tried to control it by running more dollars through the trading desk. This happened at every big agency saying, don't hire freaking Rocket Fuel and Quantcast and put some money through the trading desk. They're all going to answer the same bid requests. It's not helpful. So they shrank it down to the trading desk and a few select partners, but it created all this pressure for other partners who make money off agencies had to find a way to do it within the programmatic ecosystem. So what Mike has just observed is like they found other ways to get money and to shave dollars off of bids, and now it's just happening in the technical world because it can happen in the vendor relationship world, which
Yeah.
is
Well, and I think that the publisher perspective on this too, right? The dynamic that you just described is a scary one, where if most of the market is controlled by three players, we I'm like a zealot for pre-bid and competition being the thing that increases prices for publishers. And the thing that publishers tell me all the time why they're scared of OpenPath is they're not actually sure that 5 years from now there is competition. And they are legitimately worried, and this is me explaining. I don't actually feel this way, but they are legitimately worried that the trade desk controls enough of the market that they're going to exert real pricing control, and that's going to push down the cost of inventory because there will be no one else in town bidding against the trade desk. Now,
oh
I don't
yeah.
think that
terrifying market power of this company that just lost 40% of its
I
value.
know. And also like,
Well, compare it to November, December. It's a third.
yeah,
So
It's
it,
like,
not exactly Godzilla at the moment.
plus like OpenPath, Amazon has Amazon Publisher Services. They're buying direct, and Amazon is a gorilla. Like they're the 800-pound gorilla in the room. They're very scary. But this is to say, though, that I think that there will be lots of competition. I think it will be a thing. But what we've seen is defense. And I talk about curation being SSPs playing defense against DSPs. I really think that's what it is. Their curation is one way that SSPs have defended themselves, a way that publishers have found, and this is totally by happenstance. This is like by accident. Publishers didn't think through this. This isn't a conspiracy. It
Yeah,
is if
it's pool balls on the table, right? They jack the
the more
margins
I can
up. Now
the
Mike is going to show the margins. There's going to be more money through OpenPath, and something else will happen the other way.
well, and what publishers would say,
It's kind of
I can artificially duplicate, I can artificially ID bridge, even though I don't normally know that that's happening. All I know is there are 300 companies with pre-bid adapters. If I work with more of them, I'll never forget. There was a hilarious sortable chart. God, this must have been 2016. It was just a line, and it was number of bidders and average CPM. And the more pre-bid bidders you had, the higher the average CPM was. It was like not rocket science. And this continues to be the case. And so publishers just add more. We have more of these companies pop up because they can ID bridge, they can bid duplicate more, and it does make publishers more money.
yeah.
And publishers don't actually think about why or know why. And I'm not sure it's their job to. So their response to a lot of this is, well, if you're a buyer, just choose where you buy. Like, I'm
I
I'm gonna
guess,
keep working with these companies. I don't know what they do.
yeah, I think there's a lot there that I agree with. The one though I think is like super fascinating that I would just touch on is like the open path thing. It's like, well, I can't have everything consolidated in open path, and it's like, where do you think the demand in Magnite or Pubmatic or Index is coming from? Like, could you go to each of you? Here's an interesting experiment. Go to each of the SSPs and say, can you show me what Trade Desk or whomever, pick another DSP, spent with me yesterday? I would be curious to see how many of them give that information. I think a bunch of them would, and I think a bunch of them wouldn't. And like, so to me, this is just like, in some ways, it's as simple as I'm the publisher. I look at things in terms of bid adapters. I have many. I don't want everything to go to one. It's like, what's the demand behind all of this? Right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'll just keep bid jamming you. And I'm like, okay, well, like two thoughts. One, what happens theoretically if Trade Desk goes away?
Yeah. Oh,
Right,
it's terrible.
let's just like I'm not, it's not a threat or anything. I'm just saying, like, as the thought experiment, and it's like you can just keep hammering this, these two companies or three companies, right? It's like, what happens if one goes away? Is it just an interesting thought experiment? And then two, I also think it's like, I mean, I think we're not honest to a certain degree. Is this a buyer constrained, a demand constrained market, or a supply constrained market?
Yeah.
And like, so when I talk about transaction ID, people are like, well, you've got to do this, and then you've got to do that, and this, and it's not a threat. I don't know why I just got hearts, but it's not. I'm not trying to be difficult, and people are like, well, trade desk is a black box. You never explain things. I'm like, I'm literally trying to talk to people and explain things. But we have to be honest with principles. Like, is this a demand constrained environment? Like, you don't have to support transaction ID, but I'm telling you what we value.
Yeah.
And so, like,
Little
I
demand
think
constraint.
publishers kind of
There's a
get.
friendly way and a not friendly way for this to go down, right? Like
I don't
and the
even think it
friendly
has to be
way
so
is
emotionally charged. It's like, we'll
yeah,
just move on. Like,
People's money.
exactly. It's people's money, man. So I just gave an example in Beeler chat not long ago, and because I think that people actually haven't thought through this. Like, how could this actually be bad for buyers? And if we're expecting Trade Desk's algorithms when they respond to a given auction and they're figuring out this is the bid I want to put forth, or these are the three bids I want to put forth, there is an insane amount of complexity in coming to what those three are for that opportunity in that moment. There are 1,000 campaigns, 10,000 campaigns that could have been selected that are all pacing, they're all optimizing, they're all thinking. And when the trade desk responds to one of these in this moment, the notion that all of the prioritization it does, which it has to do prioritization, it has to think through, okay, I want this campaign to be the one that delivers for this impression in this moment because a gazillion reasons, like super complicated. And then they're just gonna have another like insertion into the same auction, but not know all of that logic that goes into that first decision is worthless. Like it does nothing. And so the
What do you mean?
optimization, like the optimization process just gets broken by this. And so this is, I think, the technical argument against bid jamming is that it removes the ability to be smart about what bids you put forward. And that sucks. That does suck.
Can we
There's
just
definitely
unpack that a
someone being
little?
harmed by that.
The Chalice doesn't
Yeah.
have that problem. We bid for one advertiser at a time, and if the features of the bid request are the same, we'll bid the same. But what you're saying, I think what you were saying is that Trade Desk has to take into account pacing in multiple advertisers. So the bid jamming just confuses their algorithm and keeps it from functioning properly.
Deeply. So when a bid request goes to Trade Desk, right? Trade Desk has to think about every single campaign it has live,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Who am I sending back for this opportunity?
So second to second,
Yeah.
Super complicated.
And so,
Super
and so
complicated.
Adam, you may do one at a time now, but like as you grow, even with like with your index solution, you will encounter this problem. It's like I have multiple eligible opportunities here, and it's strategically like not in your interest to submit all those bids
yeah.
for a bunch of different reasons. And so like Garrett's right, but like let me give you another example. And what's so funny about you know stories about OpenPath or whatever. It's like three SSP executives said this, and it's just like I get it. Like I by and large, I don't think I think our industry press is pretty good, but like you could just go and read Jeff's public comments on earnings on these types of things. And like I'm not a legal expert, but I'm pretty sure you can't just like state falsehoods. But it's like OpenPath is also a canary in a coal mine in a stalking horse, right? So it's like on this publisher on a given day, OpenPath got 100 million requests sent to the trade desk. From another SSP, we have 900 million.
On the same domain, they're the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Yeah.
So it's not publishers are like always think horizontally, my 30 bidders. Oh no. And it's like, yeah, I understand like that is a consideration. I know it's hard to believe, but like we also want publishers and high quality publishers to be very successful, right? Like that is in our long-term interests there. A healthy open internet benefits us all. But like if one of those is crushing us with duplicative requests and we don't have a transaction ID, which ones are quality? Which ones are not? Like which ones are just like literally like copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, yeah, over and over again. And like that's an example of what I'm talking about. I'll give you another example. And there was a test we did with an SSP. Well, we did with a bunch of SSPs, but like we did a test for a very short a period of time, and we cut we sort of like made an early what we call like an early decision gate where it's like, okay, we're gonna sort of have some elasticity, and once it's over this threshold, we're gonna drop. We're sort of like gonna early decision these out, and it's like so that was like 35-40% of requests on a CTV publisher that we did, and we went in a world where we stopped. We early decisioned out 30 to 40% of requests. The bids went from 300 million to 150 million during this time. Okay, so they were cut in half. And I'm not talking 100 bids to 50, like hundreds of millions of bids. The spend, which was measured in six figures, moved less than 1%.
Interesting. Yeah.
How does that happen? How, like, please explain to me how that happens if it's not for monstrous request duplication and, quite frankly, bid caching.
Yeah. I mean,
Like we haven't, none of my things have even talked about bid caching yet, in like these posts, which I get so pilloried for. But it's like I understand that there's complexity in feedback and on the publishers. I do not want to be dismissive, but we have to improve this market as we go forward, or it's like it's over for all of us.
Yeah,
I think
we
it's
got a
totally
lot of
fair.
questions in.
And I do just want
Let me
to
give the.
lob. Okay, we'll do one question, but then I do want to lob the publisher perspective in there, which is like, so stop working with those SSPs. Like, just kill them. It didn't
Yeah.
hurt your spend. Just kill them. Like, who's protecting them? Do they deserve to be protected? If you can't trust them, like, and I think most publishers would agree with this. I really do think that most publishers would say this. If you really feel like you cannot trust the SSP, don't trust them. Like, kick him to the curb. I love my SSP buddies. I had a call with McNeely this morning. I love Index Exchange. I really do. But like, I've been saying this for years. My gosh. So I sold my
What is
company to
going on though,
Rubicon.
Gareth? Why don't they? Why don't they kick them to the curb? Why don't the 10 crack commandments come into play here and don't
I mean,
stop trusting people?
I have conspiracies, but like, I don't know the real reason. I don't work at a DSP.
All right. But why don't publishers kick them? Oh, you're saying that the DSP should not buy
DSPs,
from these
just stop
SSP men.
buying from these schmucks who just send you all these duplicate requests. Tell them peace out, yo. You sent me 900 million. I know there was 100 million, but this is totally unacceptable.
That's a
Like,
question for Mike. Like it looks to me like Trade Desk protects these guys. At the same time, you're calling them out that there's a bit of push and pull there. Like you didn't name
Yeah,
them.
yeah. So I think a couple of things, like Garrett said, I want to be clear, like this is not all SSPs are bad. Like you said, I think there are a bunch of SSPs that do great things. I actually think it's a super exciting time to be an SSP with like the pending Google things. It's like I would be thinking about, gee, how do we like what does ad serving look like in 2026, 2027? Right. I think it's like publishers were used to getting it for free, but they were getting hosed. And so like I do think, just to pick one off the shelf, like Sovereign is doing some really interesting stuff with like SaaS-based work,
yeah, it's cool.
obviously index and the container stuff. So like I worked at an SSP. I believe there are good companies that are in that SSP category that are, the publisher's agent, and they're working on behalf of the publisher and doing cool things. So like that is not like hyperbole or politicking. Like I genuinely believed it. I wouldn't have worked at an SSP if I didn't think it was that was the case. So that's point one. Point two is like, well, why don't we just kick them to the curb? It's like it's again one of these things that like it's easier. Like we don't make binary choices. Like someone comment on my post, it's like, well, why don't you just, this is a bad supply path, just choose good supply paths. It's like, it's this abstraction, like whiteboardification of like thinking about decisioning. It's like 10 million decisions per second, right? And so it's like the opportunities are evaluated at a far more granular level. So it's not easy. So really the question is like, turn off this entire supply path. It is a big question. And in particular, if you have agency clients who are saying, I have this deal ID, it has to run here, even though it's not performing, it needs to run. And so you can say, well, I can't turn it off completely, but I have to keep it on for these customers who are saying explicitly, this needs to stay on. I am targeting this. I want this on. And you can
Oh
look at it and
God.
be like, this seems like you could get, we know for a fact you can get this media far cheaper and far more performantly elsewhere. But it needs to stay on. I think I'm sure Gareth is going to explain exactly why that is the case. But the
Oh, it
other
just
fact
gave
I
me
would
a
just,
horrible idea.
but here's an interesting fact that I would just,
We love
what I
this
would
guy.
just say is like, um, my go-to fact on this is that I just think is fascinating. In 2019, 45 40%, sorry, not 45, 40% of ad spend in the United States went through a holding company or one of the sort of like lower nodes child agencies of a holdco. In 2025, that number is 25%.
Yeah,
Like that is a crazy amount of change for a 6-year period, in my opinion, right?
it is.
And so I think that kind of change, I think generates a lot of behaviors that can be minute to minute, day to day rational, but quarter to quarter, month to month, year to year irrational. And like I understand it. Like people need to survive. I think agencies are a good thing. I also think, interestingly, I think the independent agency sector is exploding and is doing really, really well. But I think that to answer your specific question, it's like clients want transactions for their deals on some of these paths, and that is
Yeah.
how it's exploited.
It's a deal ID future. Let's answer some questions. We have so many.
All right, we have a bunch of questions in the chat. We have some from the AdTech Girl, Patrick, and RL7115. Appreciate you all. AdTech Girl, and it's funny, Sincera was auto-corrected by YouTube to be Sarah. So the question is, does that mean that since Sincera can see a curator's margin, these numbers are egregious anyway? Either way, just curious how much visibility buyer could potentially get.
Yeah, I'm not going to say the methodology and talk about like how we know these things, other than we are very confident with the numbers. And if I say there's no curator present, like I feel very confident in saying that there's no curator present on the transaction. What was the second part of the question?
How do we know? Is there any way that we as buyers can find out what's being taken off our bids other than asking the publisher, working with them and comparing logs?
No, not right now, unfortunately, because it's
We
like
should
we do,
make people
yeah,
append margins. Gotta do it.
right. Like we
Gotta do
have,
it.
like I said, millions and millions and millions of examples of this, but we don't have this necessarily for every transaction.
It's
And
it's
then
like a
Fiducia's
broker's
trying,
fee.
right?
What?
Fiducia's trying. They're trying with their log level analysis. It's just not the way. Like, Prebid needs to implement, and OpenRTB needs to implement margin communication. You just need to make radical transparency. Will make this happen. Every node
The
needs to say
publisher could
what its margin
send
was.
back what they got,
Hard.
right?
It's a hard number to arrive at impression by impression, and like it's a the problem is there's so many different things that clear that really the only place that there are the two places that number exists. There is if they work with someone like me who's really good at estimating what AdX pays, or if they have GAM logs. Those are the only two places.
Yeah, but
Um, hard.
I kind of disagree with this. Like I don't have a problem with people taking margin, just to be clear. I have a problem with people ripping people off and extracting way more value than they are putting in, right? So
Fix it
like
without sunlight on it. Yeah.
yeah, and so like again, like I think like in some cases it's like everyone just state their margin. It's like there is optimization on both publisher and sell side that I think is fine. Like real floor optimization, I get it. Like I understand how that works, and that can be dynamic and so on and so forth. Like it's a tricky thing to do on a per transaction basis. So I don't know if that's the solution, because then again, I think it makes us victim to what happens with the walled garden. So it's like great that we're all playing a different game that they are playing. Like we don't win. Like we get so busy competing with each other that we don't think like who we really need. And this is, I think, one of the things that I was like fully like snapped for me when I was like, oh, I really like Adam, and I'm like, I want to talk to this guy more, despite his cantankerous Twitter personality. Is just like people don't talk, I was talking about the trade press. It's like people don't talk about Google and margin and the ad server because it's too complex for them to understand. But they understand AppNexus, and they understand Criteo, and they understand Trade Desk, and they understand PubMatic. So they just attack and point fingers, and I'm going to leak a story about these guys, and they're going to leak a story about them. And it's like, guys, like, it's like all this Rebel Alliance infighting when the Empire is just sucking up planet after planet.
The Judean People's Front.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the Nyborg, or like the Gorman Front is upset with, the Kyber Crystal Alliance. It's like, guys, what are we doing?
David, next question.
All right. This is also from AdTech Girl. It's more of a comment. All these fees look free or included to buyers, and it would be big to show how many fees get packed in.
Yeah.
Yep.
I kind of agree with Mike though. Like ultimately the battle is cost for value against the walled gardens.
Yeah.
If some of that value is embedded, then it shouldn't.
So, yeah. So
I worry
Adam
about
should
this.
be. One sec though. Can I just say, like,
No, go, go, go.
I just think like fees are a proxy for performance in some ways, right? Like I think like what are you measuring in your campaign as a buyer as success? Right. Like, I don't know, Adam, if you've ever talked about the case study you guys did with the Sincera data. I won't say anything unless you say it's okay. But like, if you are measuring outcomes and performance, and the system is buying on these types of transactions versus not buying on these transactions, you will see it in your results.
Yep, that's the Zillow case study. It was covered in Ad Exchanger last week, the August 4th Ad Exchanger. That was Sincera data used for Zillow. We quadrupled their CPMs and their conversion rate went up 6x. It's real.
Right. And so like that was a quality story about like finding the right opportunities in a very granular level. And despite paying a lot more per impression, it drove significantly more outcomes, right? And so I guess like another way to think about it is like what am I measuring in terms of outcomes, and is it agnostic to price?
Yeah, we got to get away from e-commerce measurement where everything's a tag fire. That was a necessity. It's like it's the use case that everybody built around, but it's not the only use case for
Did
I
we though?
agree, yeah.
Did we? Because the walled gardens crushed that, and we really don't. Like, how many mom and pops set up pixels and spend $100,000 a month on Facebook, and are like, oh look, sales, and then
Yeah.
but then they spin up a campaign in the trade desk, and they're like, well, this isn't converting the same way, and
Do
I
they
don't
even
think
do
it's
that?
all.
How do they sign up for the trade desk? Can
No,
you
they
sign up
can't.
with a credit card?
You can't. You
I
can't.
don't. I don't think you can. You need a fancy account, don't you? Don't you have to go to a
But you're
reseller like
talking about the
Choosel?
small advertiser market.
Yeah. And
That's the
my
perfect use case for Meta. It's a giant data pool. It's like data socialism. Like if you want to sell car insurance or
But
used
I
cars,
don't
it's
think
like
we've
everything's in
really.
there.
But here's what I'm getting at, and I wrote this in my article. This is why I hated dynamic rev shares, and this is why the thing that Mike is talking about, where someone took a 65% rev share on that. If that advertiser is optimizing to outcomes, their effective CPA is going to be marked up by 65% from the middlemen, but they're not going to say 65% of my cost was middlemen fees. They're going to say this publisher is expensive, right? Because that's all they have. They're going to say this domain cost me a lot of money.
Yep.
And if they knew, okay, my effective CPA is 20% too high, but 60% of my fees went to the middleman, that publisher is ROI positive for them. That ad slot was ROI positive. They just had to pay too much money to get
Yeah,
there.
I know.
And,
What
and
we're
Meta
seeing-
doesn't have that problem. Meta doesn't have that, right? Because Meta controls both sides. They control the inventory, and so they can squeeze their margin down as low as they want. They make money at 1%. Like, it's a thing. So, yeah.
Okay.
We got a bunch more coming in.
We got to get going. We got to
Yeah, we got to
We
start
got 17
cruising
minutes.
through these. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is from Paul. Paul, thank you for being here. Gareth, in your article, you suggested publishers could provide deduplicating identifiers to increase transparency to buyers. Can you all go deeper on this?
Mike, you want to go for transaction ID?
It's your article. You tell me.
Oh, so there's a lot of the hullabaloo is around transaction ID. And what transaction ID is a pre-bid sourced identifier for a given auction. And
Let me
pre-bid
just pause
is
because it's weird for buyers that this doesn't exist. It's like if a
it's-
house
it's
is
weird,
for sale,
period.
you don't. There's no chance that like you bid on multiple houses and not know it's all the same house. It's a
Mm-hmm.
weird thing.
It's weird. When you guys were talking about market dysfunction earlier, I was like, oh God, this is weird. I could bid 4 times in the same auction and I have no clue. Yeah, so the idea behind transaction ID is an identifier that is for the pre-bid auction on the page. And typically, there's only one pre-bid auction for an impression. By virtue of the fact that there is no identifier for a given pre-bid auction passed through to anyone, it is very easy. You can't distinguish when you're in bidding in a system whether or not 2 requests are from the same on-page pre-bid auction. And transaction ID, the thesis, is that the final auction, the pre-bid auction, well, the semi-final auction, the final programmatic auction before GAM, has an ID that they flash out that tells everyone, hey, everyone, this bid request that you're getting is from this pre-bid auction on the page. And in doing so, buyers would now know, like, oh, this transaction ID came from this exchange. There's all sorts of goodies. Like, did this exchange send me 5 requests for one transaction ID? How many times are they duplicating it? And let's make sure I don't bid the same time across
Good
multiple
logical
exchanges. The
thing. Nobody,
same
there's no
one.
rational case against it. And
It
let me
is quite
just tell the
logical.
noobs that the reason we have header bidding is, as this book explains, is it was the solution for Google dominance. So Google dominance was crushing publishers. Header bidding was invented as a way to circumvent Google, and then header bidding explodes in duplication, and now we have to solve that problem. It's
Well,
that's
well,
the
allow me to present the other side of this, which is publishers have benefited, they think, and it has been borne out in data from this lack of transparency, in that the phenomenon we were discussing earlier, which is the trade desk has 1,000 things it could send as a bid, and it can only send a couple of them. If you ping that same system 10 times, you get 10 different bids back, because when it's picking from the 1,000, it picks different things every time. And because of that, you make more money.
game.
And this has borne out. I wrote an article about this 2 years ago. Like, this works. It's a thing, but it's dysfunctional. That's the thing. But publishers
So
are scared because they think they will make less money. I'm not certain that they will, but they think that they will.
I have this revolutionary new tech, actually. It's for people in the fishing industry. It's a bigger net that you take to a spot that has fish, and the net actually drops and fills up your hold 6 times, or 8 times, or 12 times, or 15 times. And it's like, you know what I noticed? It has borne out in the data that the fishing boats that use this revolutionary new mic net technology, make more fish and they earn more. And like, what could possibly go wrong?
They're not gonna bleed your lake dry, Mike.
Like, why is there only 3 DSPs with 90% of the market? All these other lakes have already been emptied, man. Like, I'm not asking you to trust me. It's like, it's what the evidence presents.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
What are you
sure.
saying? Wait, you're saying because
Yeah,
Trade Desk has so many bids,
I
then
don't
it
think
makes
the
sense for
DSPs died because
No, you
because
just
that
keep
side.
asking for more and more bids, and performance sucks. Like, the way you have a presumption in your argument that, like, what you try to brand as bid jamming, which I don't really understand. I think it's just request duplication.
Yeah.
There's like a presumption. It's like, well, how much of it's good. Publishers see it as this, like, there's no secondary effects, or like second
Mm.
order effects of this type of
it doesn't
behavior.
create more fish.
Yeah,
Everybody's
I'm
the
trying to
fishes
steel
move
man
to
this,
different
guys.
locations.
But you're not wrong. Like, I think that there's a good argument to be made here that Trade Desk has to spend the money and wants to spend the money. So by reducing the request duplication, it's not like Trade Desk is gonna not spend the money anymore. Like, they need to spend the money. Um,
It's not about trade desk. It's the advertiser going for their next budget and being like, why are we buying on the open internet? Let's just go back to these walled gardens. It's so much easier anyway. That's the issue. It's not trade desk spending the money. It's what's the advertiser doing with their next budget.
yeah. And here's the thing. I think that the thing that's scary, right, is if there's so much in the middle, and I pretty deeply believe this, and this is one of the things I try to work on at Chimera. There's so much in the middle that's inefficient that we are losing advertisers over time in the open web.
Mhm.
And I think that's a possibility. I don't think we're measuring that properly, but I think it's a very real possibility that advertisers are not only are we not getting new ones, which I don't think that we are, um, but we're losing them, and that's an issue. And
You can lose them.
everything that hurts that, like,
You
is
can lose them
bad.
numerically. You can lose the share of their wallet and their budget. And for more doom is, like, if an agency is doing some sort of rebate or kickback program, they are servicing the search and meta budgets where there's no kickbacks. So then the open internet has to carry the load of the kickback coverage for those other areas,
Right.
right? And
So it just
so,
looks
like,
worse and worse.
exactly. So it's an adjacent problem, but, like, it's like, I am sympathetic to publishers too, though. You know, something I shared with Jeff is, like, the number of journalists in the United States has declined by 80% since the year 2000. And like that's a direct result of Google. Like there's just like there's technology disruption inherent with that, but I firmly believe that it is can be squarely laid at the feet of Google. And the I so I understand why publishers are making a decision for today. It's like I add a new adapter, I make more. But I'm just saying, like, this doesn't. It's like if we print more money, we can spend more. It's like we also know what happens with that mentality too, right? Like this isn't infinitely elastic.
Yeah.
Eventually, people move and change.
Well,
Hey
so I
guys,
want to like,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
we got 9 minutes. I need to do a lightning round on questions, so we're going to get through the
lightning
rest of
round.
them. All right.
Thank you, David. Keep
Sorry
us
about
under
that.
control here.
Yeah, some production value here, right? Okay. This is more of a comment than a question, so we're not going to respond to it, but just thank you, Patrick, for saying it's wild, the resistance against the trade desk. We have a question from
Sure is.
RL7115. This is a two-part. Does that mean the trade desk or any independent DSP reward bid jamming unknowingly? As far as I'm aware, DV360 rewards bid jamming, which would incentivize publishers to do this. And if that's the case, what's the potential resolution?
Ooh, that's a fair point. That's an interesting one.
I don't know if I would say reward. What I would say in the history of real-time bidding, no one has built a system that is 100% resistant to request flooding, bid jamming, or whatever. Like it is a very difficult problem to solve for a bunch of different reasons. You can certainly mitigate it, which, the DSPs that are around today have built systems to do so. But to fully eliminate it is an incredibly difficult problem. How do you maintain campaign level performance, like what Garrett was saying earlier, if you don't maximize the decision area for buying a campaign? And how do you maximize the decision area without constraining with hard caps on inbound opportunities?
Yeah, Gareth, that brings me to a question before. You were saying if you're starting a DSP, if you're inventing a bidder, it's not that hard to get, all the publishers to install your pre-bid module so you can bid.
Hmm?
And then
Yep.
where do you put the bid? Is it also easy to stand up a bidder? I'm thinking of like the AWS kit or something. Like,
It's
yeah?
not so bad.
What?
There are a million ways to do it. It's not so bad. It's gotten cheap. It's crazy. And you're going to have
I,
costs, right? So
I,
there'll be startup costs, but like,
I,
you can
I
start
think
small.
one of the things we saw with the crawler, just crawl air quotes, like what we call what most people call the crawler, it's Sincera, what we call synthetic user, is like it's very easy. Someone who remained nameless was when we were first starting it, they're like, "Oh, okay, so this is just a crawler," and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I guess." And I left the meeting a little dejected, and then I was like, "Wait a minute." Like Google search is just a crawler. Like if you want to be overly reductive, OpenAI is just a crawler, right? Like, there's a lot more to it. And same with the DSP. Like it's very easy to get to like 40 or 50% functionality with a DSP of things out of the box or a crawler, but to those every next percentage point of building those features is very, very painful. Same, honestly, well, with RTB transactions on the sell side for an SSP as well. It's super easy to get to get halfway there, and then it's miserable slog.
It's
Yeah,
nice to have
I mean,
someone with technical skills come on and say that with our show of two non-technical founders. Like, it's something people don't get. Sorry,
We say
Gavin.
we're the Mike Rowe of dirty jobs of ad tech. It's like, oh yeah, our engineering can do that. It's like, sure, I'm not saying we're not presenting this for bidders as something that you technically can't do. That's not the problem. It's like, will you do it? How much effort does it take to do?
oh yeah, and it's always not can, it's always should. Um, for me, the scary part about starting a DSP is one, you're absolutely right, Mike. There's a million features that get built over time, requested by agencies and advertisers. All sorts of little things, all over the place, and that makes switching for DSPs hard. Like
Yeah.
people don't like using new ones; they don't like it.
My my
That's what scares
my
me.
my my hot take, like I said to someone this morning, I was like, if I were to build a DSP today, which I'm not, but I'm like, if I were to build a DSP today, I would do what Garrett said. I would build direct integration points with publishers as close as possible. But I would also intentionally try to not to try to take not to take agency customers and demand.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah.
This one's heavy on the acronyms here.
Oh yeah, let's go.
Patrick, I got super high CPMs on TTD, but my CPA and conversions were way more interesting than DV. I know what two of those are.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could let this go. Yeah. But he's comparing the two major DSPs.
Yeah.
What Google's always cheap.
Got it. Okay, another one from Paul. Why do publishers even need GAM anymore? Just for direct buys?
AdX, man. It's the only way to get AdX. Until the government steps in.
A few more weeks.
They
the only
will.
way to get Alex. Yeah.
This is coming.
All right, and this is the last question in the queue. Thank you so much, viewers, for the questions. We love it. From RL7115. Since there's a time component to requests, why can't we use the timestamp to the millisecond to identify duplicate requests?
It's not commuted up from the pre-bid auction. So the transaction ID would be commensurate with a unique timestamp, even though I'm sure that this is a complicated thing. But what happens is once those requests go out to SSPs, the timing all changes. So the timing from an SSPA and SSPB, the timestamp is going to be different because they process them at different times. It's
But that guy's saying can't they carry the original timestamp? But that's the same
it's
as
the same thing as the text.
But it would be theoretically the same, but like 2 points really quickly. Like 1 millisecond is not precise enough.
Yeah.
It's so far from precise enough. Is point 1, and point 2 is another common technique that we're starting to see more and more is I'm a publisher. I use a quote unquote yield technology that takes a bid request and sends it to the trade desk's east data center and also simultaneously sends it to the west data center. And because what you're forgetting is it's very, very, very difficult. No one has solved this yet to do real time n lookups of an unknown number of values that meet this criteria cross server, cross data center. Again, this is the whiteboardification. If you think about it in terms of a whiteboard, it makes sense. But if you think about it, it's like there are 100,000 servers in different parts of the world that could get some of these requests.
Yeah.
Right. Even with transaction
it's an
ID, we're
impossible
not
task.
doing real time. We're not doing real time joins and decisioning.
Yeah, you can't. Even if your logic is I only buy each transaction ID once, these things are coming at the same time to different places. It's so I got it.
What do you guys think of government
DSPs
intervention?
are so hard.
What do you think of a law that says, these our auctions have to be governed and that they'll be, regulated like the financial exchanges are? Would you welcome it? Do you fear it?
That's a good question. Garrett, do you want to go first?
Yeah. As long as it's being regulated by someone at the DOJ, because they managed to figure out what they were talking about, it's truly spectacular. I certainly think that the industry would benefit from a industry body with more claws. The IAB has no claws. It's suggestive at best. And if we had something with clause, and the closest thing we have is pre-bid, because pre-bid does have some clause. They do some things. They can ask for some things, but it's still not enough. But if there were something that had some clause that was like, hey, things are going to be done this way. Everyone is going to be held to account. There needs to be transparency in these transactions. It would benefit us. It would be a good thing. And this goes back to what Mike was talking about earlier, which is we don't have to worry about each other. We need to worry about the whole industry surviving, and transparency will make it more effective for advertisers. It just will. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be totally opposed to it. I'm the libertarian in me is screaming at me right now. They're like, what are you doing? What are you saying? But a regulatory body with some clause that actually enforced some standards, I think would be a good thing.
I agree with Gareth. I think the critical point, I would say, the devil's in the details. I've also been very impressed with the DOJ and their sort of clear-eyed understanding of things, probably due to all the time the experts have spent explaining things. So I would say yes, but I think we need to have a really thoughtful discussion of what does it mean to quote unquote regulate. I think one of the problems with the IEB and pre-bid is the obvious one, which is commercial interests, who are their biggest fee providers, and do they bend the knee when those entities ask for something? But also, and this is a very critical one from a technical perspective, they don't see the bid stream. So they're like, well, we should do this, and we should have AI crawlers that do that, and we should do this. And it's like, is this even the most pressing thing that we need our industry bodies to do? And some of them are. I'm not saying that they're all not, but like, it's a lot of this sort of like I don't know, like it doesn't always strike me that they're tackling the most important problems. Like a very simple one that I throw out a lot of the time is that floor is effectively meaningless on bid requests now. And like I just picture this like big board of green lights, and those are fields in the OpenRTB spec, and they're just slowly blinking from green to red. Bonk. It's like you can trust this one, but you can't trust this one. And you can trust this one, and this one's never failed, but it's actually still happening. And so I think the core of the fields are still green, but it worries me when they go from green to red, and no industry body knows this because they don't see the activity.
Yeah, that sounds like we need it. I'm gonna go on the side of it. We just need it. Like it's just self-regulation has failed. It'd be very scary to hand over the reins to the Trump administration, FCC or
I guess
something
like, is there a market this big that is completely self-regulated that's not advertising?
No, nothing close. The amount
That's
of
so
money that's being
interesting.
passed. And if the walled gardens had to submit to similar, regulation in their auctions, it might be a leveler.
Right. Yeah.
All
I would
right.
love regulation that made them open up to
Yeah.
DSPs.
I think all of the companies on this call and all the companies that are not walled gardens that we've talked about today, like for the most part, they don't need an advantage, like dynamic take rate, da, 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 da. Almost everyone we've talked about can be successful if it was just a fair playing field.
Yeah. Yeah. We were more worried about it not happening than happening. Thank you, Mike. Yes, round of applause for Mike O'Sullivan.
coming on,
from
Mike.
Vegas.
Thank you guys. It was super fun. Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on. And thanks for all the questions in the chat. And Gareth, I hope your ear feels better soon.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it really likes that I have an ear pod shoved into it right now. It's really a fan.
Yeah, bring that over. I want to try it. We'll see you all next week.
See you, everyone.
Yo, the crowd is back, the lights are dim. Front row's buzzing, it's about to begin. Ad tech, ad talk, they're taking the stage. Adam and Gareth on a knowledge rampage. Ad tech, ad talk, it's a live Q&A.